You all are not going to like this vid at all. This is gonna be some fun, though. Let's do this.
What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here, and here we are. And I mean we are to do a nice little breakdown, a nice little gauntlet run on the battle between the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna, the strongest sorcerer in history, versus the notorious group of deadly criminals, the 7 Deadly Sins. As you may be able to tell, I'm in fact not alone here today. Who am I with?
Hello, everybody. I'm Eternal Flame here. How y'all doing today? What's goody in the hoodie?
Let's see what's so good. Let's see what's so good. Obviously, we are tackling Sukuna versus the 7 Deadly Sins. This will be in a gauntlet format because I hope we don't have to convince you that Sukuna is not beating all of the 7 Deadly Sins at the same time. If we do, we'll make it in. Yeah, I'm about to say we'll make it another video. If you want. It'll be a 10-second long video, by the way. I want you to know this.